You've returned. Step closer, traveller. Don't be shy. Take a moment to let your eyes adjust. This corner of the museum is rarely visited. The dust here is thicker, older, as if the air itself has forgotten how to move. The floor beneath your feet is not wood, but cold stone, worn smooth by centuries of feet that came before you. The walls lean in just a little, as if they are listening. I've been waiting for you. Not patiently, not impatiently, simply waiting, as the old things do. For a story like this one, you need the right listener, someone who understands that some disasters do not come with warnings, with storm clouds gathering on the horizon or the slow creep of rising water. No, traveller, this one fell from the clear sky. This one came with bells and brimstone, and a name that still echoes through the Devon moors on stormy nights. Do you see it? There, in a simple wooden case, preserved behind glass that has not been opened in centuries. A bell clapper, bronze, weathered, its surface pitted and darkened as if by fire. The plaque reads, "Rediscovered from St. Pancras Church, Widecombe-in-the-Moor, Devon, England, October 21st, 1683. This is Exhibit XIII of my collection, the Great Thunderstorm of Widecombe." Look closer, traveller. Let your eyes trace the pitted surface of the bell clapper. Feel the weight of it in your mind. It once rang out to summon the faithful. Its voice carried across the moors, calling the living to pray. Now it sits silent, a witness to something that should not have been possible. A storm that struck not the fields or the rooftops, but the very house of God itself. Now bring your ears a little closer to the glass. Ignore the dust. Ignore the ears. Listen for the ghost of a sound. Not the roar of the fireball, but something quieter. The echoes of a voice that spoke from the tower, or from the sky, or from somewhere between. "Let us go hence," it said. And then the fire fell. This is a story that smells of scorched wood and brimstone, of wet moorland and old fear. It pulls us back to a Sunday afternoon in rural Devon, to a congregation gathered for prayer, and the moment the sky opened and something came through. The village of Widecombe-in-the-Moor sits in the heart of Dartmoor, a scatter of stone cottages and winding lanes surrounded by granite tors and heather. On the morning of October the 21st, 1638, the congregation of St. Pancras Church gathered in their regular Sunday service. It was a cold day, grey but calm, the kind of day that promised little more than a sermon and a walk home through the mist. They never finished the service. At approximately 2 o'clock in the afternoon, as the congregation sat in the pews, and the rector, George Lyde, began his prayers, the sky above Widecombe turned black, not the slow darkening of an approaching storm, but a sudden, unnatural twilight, as if someone had drawn the curtains across the sun. The people inside the church heard a loud rumble, then a crack, then a roar that shook the stone walls to their foundation. A ball of fire, what we might now call ball lightning, descended through the church roof and exploded among the congregation. A pamphlet published just days later described the scene in terrifying detail. A fateful fire, a flashing light fell upon the church. A strange, terrible thunder, the like whereof never was heard. The fireball struck the tower first, tearing through the stonework and sending the great bell crashing down. The clapper, the one you see before you, was ripped from its housing and thrown across the church. The ball moved through the nave, splitting into smaller flames that leapt from pew to pew. 4 people died that afternoon. A 5th died later from his injuries. Some 60 others were wounded, burned, blinded, or struck senseless by the force of the blast. But what makes this disaster truly strange, traveller, is not the deaths, it's what did not die. The pamphlet records that while the fireball raged through the church, a young woman named Frances, her surname lost to the ether, was kneeling in prayer. A molten stone hurled by the explosion struck her arm and stuck fast. She was certain she would burn. When the fire subsided, she was unharmed. The stone had not marked her skin. Another account tells of a man whose clothes were torn from his body by the force of the blast, leaving him naked but entirely uninjured. Not a single burn, not a scratch. And outside the church, not a single house in Widecombe had been touched. Not a thatch, not a barn, only the church. Within days, a darker story had begun to spread. The congregation remembered something strange. Just before the explosion, they had heard a voice. Not the rector's voice, not any human voice. Some said it came from the tower, others said it came from the sky. "Let us go hence," the voice said, and then the fire fell. Within a week, the story had transformed. The voice was not a voice, it was the devil himself, came to claim a soul. And who was that soul? A man named Jan Reynolds, a local ruffian who had once boasted that he feared neither God nor the devil. According to legend, Reynolds was gambling in the churchyard when the storm struck, a sin for which God had sent the fireball to claim him. The devil's footprint was found on a stone near the church, a mark that some said was left by Satan as he fled. You can still see it today, traveller, if you visit Widecombe. A dark impression in the granite, shaped like a cloven hoof. Modern research has its own explanations. They call it ball lightning, a rare form of plasma generated by an electrical storm that entered through the tower and detonated inside. The voice may have been a natural effect of the explosion, the roar of superheated air, distorted by the acoustics of the stone walls. But science cannot explain the molten stone that did not burn, cannot explain the man whose clothes were torn away, but whose skin was untouched. It cannot explain why the fire only fell on the church. The pamphlets were not written by fools. They were written by men who had seen something they could not explain, and who reached for the only language they had, the language of God and the devil, of sin and punishment. Whether they were wrong is not for me to say. The bell clapper you see before you was rediscovered from the wreckage of the tower. It was found buried in the rubble, still warm to the touch, though the fire had been out for hours. The clerk who recorded the event in the parish register did so by candlelight that same evening, his hand shaking so badly that some of his letters are barely legible. "A great and terrible thunderstorm fell upon this church," he wrote. "The Lord have mercy upon us." They never found out who the voice belonged to. They never found out why the fire came. The people of Widecombe rebuilt their church, patched the holes in the roof, hung a new bell in the tower, but they never forgot. So now we leave it be, a bell clapper torn from its mooring, pitted and darkened by a fire that should have consumed it. It is a humble thing, small and ordinary, and yet heavy with the weight of a Sunday afternoon when the sky fell, a church burned, and the people of Widecombe learned that God, if he is there, was not speaking in whispers. Keep the image of that fireball in your mind a while longer, traveller. Think of the congregation kneeling at the pews, the rector's voice rising in prayer, the sudden darkness, the crack of thunder, the voice that said, "Let us go hence." Think of the molten stone that fell on Francis's arm and did not burn her. Think of the man who lost his clothes but kept his skin. Think of the devil's footprint, still pressed into the granite, waiting for someone to step into it. Do not try to explain it. Some things are not meant to be explained, only witnessed and remembered and carried forward. We'll close this case for now, and you may step back into the world where storms are only storms. But remember, in this museum, we acknowledge that the most terrifying disasters are not the ones we see coming, but the ones that fall from a clear sky, on a quiet Sunday, in a village that never asked for such a visitor. My duty is done. The story is told. Now you carry it out into the light. Mind the storms that gather without clouds. Mind the voice that speaks from empty air. This museum, and its keeper, will be here when you return.